Well, welcome back to another session of the 6th grade drawing project here in Warner Visual Arts. Yesterday when we left off, I had been discussing with you some of the stuff that we're going to need to continue our drawing today. And so I've got a ruler, I'm going to need a pencil, probably need an eraser, a compass if you have one, perhaps 2 patterns if you don't have a compass. This particular pattern is just off of a can of peanuts, and if we were to measure it across the middle, it would be about 4 inches in diameter, and that would really be helpful if you could find one of those. And then you got to cut a tiny hole in the middle of it that we can use. Furthermore, you probably, if you can find a lid of some sort like this, then if we were to measure across this, I'm going to do the other side, you notice that it's about 2 1/2 inches in diameter across the middle. And so then you'd also have to, drill a little hole in it if you can there. And so we're going to use those 2 patterns. If you don't have a compass, or if you do have a compass and you want to use it, that's fine with me. It's just a little bit more complicated than using the patterns. So several things. You should have a piece of a JPEG. Attach this as a JPEG to the drawing unit, and to the instructions for the day for the 6th graders. So you really need to print this, and you need to cut it down to an appropriate size, which is it looks like it's about 8 inches wide. This would be 8 inches wide by about 5 inches tall. Okay, so you need to trim that down, or you could just draw a rectangle around it with a ruler and a dark pencil so that you can clearly see it. It should be in 1-inch squares. So we've got our 10 by 16 paper that we're drawing on. We've got the small piece of artwork that we will be looking at, reference. I call that the reference drawing. A couple of patterns, a compass. I'm going to set that off screen, my trusty eraser, and some of the information that we'll be referencing periodically about the size of what we were doing. Now, when we left off yesterday, I had drawn out on my own work here rather lightly the grid system that replicates. It's the same as this grid system right here. It goes from A through H and from 1 through 5 across the top and down the side. Now I am going to draw mine off in red colored pencil. You should not do this. You should use just regular pencil in order to do this. But for myself, as an instructional tool, because I had you originally draw over top of your small piece of artwork, if you recall this, in red colored pencil, I'm going to duplicate that on the material that I am working on, so there won't be any real confusion about the way these should look, because there will be so many pencil lines on this, it will be difficult to see it. So I'm going to draw with a red pencil here, and I won't be really bolding the lines too much. I should be able to erase them, and I have in the past. So that is my first red line, and it looks to me like on the projector that this is showing up as red as well. So there will be a good definite difference between the markings I'm making with the pencil as we draw this, and of course the markings that I am making right now with the red colored pencil, which is merely just a grading pencil. Okay, so, and then I'll just keep doing this, and as I go along, I will be explaining almost everything that we are doing to you, and if I'm not explaining it, then I'll be literally demonstrating it at the same time. So just, if this seems like a complicated project at first, and a lot of projects that we do in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade art program are complicated without doubt. However, they are achievable. Thousands of students before you have achieved them without real significant difficulty. So I am pretty confident that you will also be able to succeed at this project. Especially the way that it has been getting taught here the last year or so, where I actually just draw it with the students. We used to really struggle in art class with trying to get people's needs met. If we had absenteeism, there was just really no way to, adequately go back and re-instruct that individual who had missed that day without slowing the whole class down. And then when we were drawing, I would have the students, I'd just give them a picture of this car, and we would grid off their paper, and I'd say draw it, and they just were completely lost. And so as a result of that, I've started drawing along with the students. And I kind of got that idea one day when I guess I was watching a Bob Ross video, and it just dawned on me that this guy figured it out. Maybe he's got something to offer me. Alright, there we go. So we've got that set up. Our area we're drawing in is 10 inches tall by 16 inches wide. We've ruled it off into 2-inch squares. If you watched the previous video, you're aware of that. We're going to quickly letter it out here, bold it up so that you all can see it, and then we're going to start drawing here because, well, that's how we do it. G and then H. I'm going to bold that, and then square A. 1 is there, 2, 3, 4, and of course numero 5. So we're looking at our project. We're looking at what we are drawing from, and it's pretty obvious to me that as we do this, there's some areas that don't have anything at all in them. Excuse me. So making sure that you draw the right thing in the right area is important, but making sure that you don't draw anything in the wrong area is also important. Now, over the years, what we have discovered is that it is the easiest way to get this car drawing going is to figure out where the tires go. And in this case, we're going to start by sighting in this tire. Now, one of the most important parts of a circle, and the tire is pretty much a circle, I think you'd agree, is figuring out where the center of the circle is at. And then once you figure that out, things like deciding how to use a compass or pattern get to be very easy. So I'm looking at my drawing here, or my reference work, and I see it's in square B, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's in the upper left corner of square B4. So if I go to square B4, and I go to the upper left hand corner, I'm going to compare these and see if I've got it about right. So this is in that upper left corner of square B4. I'm going to go to square B4, and about right here, I suppose, is where I'm going to put it. So I'm going to put a dot about right there. If you wanted to, you could take like a red colored pencil or a red ink pen or something and just put it right dead in the middle of that so you can really accurately estimate where it goes. I'm pretty confident that that is accurately estimated where it goes. So I'm going to move this off to the side for a moment there, and I'm going to get my 4-inch pattern, my can lid. Now there's a part of the can lid that sticks up and another part that doesn't. The part that's got the lip on it, that's the part I put up. It's much easier to trace it that way. Now the hard part here is going to be to take this hole that we've cut in the middle of our pattern, place it right over top of the dot that we made in the upper left corner of square number B4, and when you get it centered up like that, now it's pretty easy to see how this works. Now what we've got to do is we've got to see where it crosses these lines. Does this circle cross these lines in the right places? Does it cut the little corner right here? So we'll start at the top. Is it just below this grid line? It looks like it is. Does it curve over and just barely cut off the corner of square C3? In fact, it does. Does it curve through here and come out before it hits down in the next corner? And in fact, it does. And does it go a little bit below the grid line? And it does. And does the left curve of it all fit inside the picture with a little space left over? And it does. And so if that's how it looks, then we're going to draw it. If it doesn't, you have to figure out how to move this pattern around so that it crosses all of these grid lines in the appropriate place. Okay, we hold it down firmly, and then we're simply going to trace around it. and you have to hug the pencil up next to the pattern in order for this to work. If you get the pencil under the pattern, you will draw a fried egg, okay? You're not, or a potato shape. If we're using a pattern, we might as well get a circle, right? Okay, that is that rear tire. Now, and everybody says, Mr. Mathis, that thing is enormous, and you're right. But I think if I were to measure it, I think we'd find it's about 2 inches across. See, it's 2 inches across if we go in the middle, and this is a 4-inch across circle right there. And so it's the right size. You got to trust me. Well, you don't have to trust me. Do your own measurements. Now, we're done with this big pattern for a while. We're going to take the smaller pattern right now. Now we got to figure out where on this picture the center of this circle is at. So I'm going to take my red ink pen and put a dot in there. And a little bit more difficult to tell this time, so I'm going to also split this square. And then I'm going to split this square. Like that. And now it's getting easier. So I know that's in square H1, 2, 3, 4. So in square H4, which would be right here, I'm going to lightly split my square. I'm going to split my square again. Now I can see that my red dot is from this split line, which is right here, is it rides right on that split line, and it's about half the distance from here to here. So I can pretty accurately estimate that it goes right there. So I'm going to put a dot. Move this off to the side. Now I got to take my pattern, and this one's a little bit more difficult because the hole's not quite so large. And I want to put it right on top of that dot. And so I'm looking at it. I think I've got it right on top of the dot. I can't tell. There it is. Okay, I can see it. But it's hard. I know you all can't see it, but I can see it. Okay, so I got it on the top of the dot. Do I? Okay, yeah, about right here. Now I've got it pushed all the way up against the edge. We got to compare it. Does it go over top? We'll start here. Is it above the grid line? And the answer is, well, yeah, kinda. Does it cut off this corner in square G3? Well, it does. Does it come around and cut off the corner down here in square G5? Well, it does. And does it have a little bit of space left over between the end of the picture? And it doesn't that much, so it must be over like this a little more. Okay, now I want to also take my ruler, and I'm going to need my longer ruler. Take my 12-inch ruler here. I want to make sure that my tires are kind of level with each other. So I'm laying this ruler and checking this, and it says to me now that this is a little bit high. So if I move it down, that's not going to be quite right either. So I'm going to have to split the difference and make it somewhere about right in here. It's got a little space, cuts the corners. It's pretty close to where it needs to be according to this picture. And it's not quite perfectly level, but it's pretty close. Maybe fake it a little bit down. Okay, I'm going to hold it down, and I'm going to trace around it. Now, if we were in a physical classroom, we would be sharing these patterns, and everybody would be passing them around to the next person. Now, I'm telling you, I know that's not the center of that circle anymore, so I'm going to have to erase that, because I know when I come back, I'll have to find the center of that circle eventually when I use my compass. So, I want to leave that where it's at right now, but it does do pretty much what I want it to do, so I'm satisfied with that. Now, once we're done with this one, we would go back with this pattern again, and we're going to place it right over top of that dot, because this one came out very good. So we're going to place it right over top of the dot. We're going to look at it. Sometimes it helps if you stand up and you want it in the dead middle of that circle we drew representing the big portion of the rubber part of the tire. We're going to hold it down. Once it's in that dead middle, we're going to trace around it, holding the rule. You got to hold your pattern down really firmly. Okay. So that looks pretty good. It's right there in the middle of it all. Okay, so we're getting set up already. We've got our tires working for us. Now, the next thing I'm going to have you do is we're going to go to the compass. And if you have a compass like this, you're in good shape. If you don't, you're going to have to find some more patterns that are just slightly smaller than both of these circles that we've just made. So you would need a series of patterns, and each one of them gets smaller. This one would be the 2.5, and each one needs to get smaller as you do that. So here's what we're going to do. Again, we're going to estimate the dead middle of our circle. And I'm looking at it, and as best I can estimate, it's about right here. Put a dot there. Now I'm going to take the middle of my compass, this little metal part, place it right over top of that dot, and then I'm going to check it just to make sure that the circular part of my compass is in the middle. And that looks pretty close. So now I'm going to take my pencil, stick it in the last hole in the part that spins, is how we're going to do this. Spin it a couple times. Came out beautiful. Then I'm going to take the largest of the patterns that are on my compass right here, because these in the middle on the spinner, these are patterns. So I'm going to take that pattern, the biggest one, and maybe the next biggest one. Okay, I'm going to put it right over top of the dot. I got to hold this part down so it doesn't skid. And I'm going to make my circle in the middle. So what we have just done, it looks like a 3-ring target, but it's got the rubber portion of the tire, the metal portion of the rim, and then the center of the tire, which it rotates on. So we've got the rubber portion, we've got the rim, and we've got the hub in the middle. So that means we can go ahead and erase this work right here out. We won't be needing that for a while, if ever again. Now it seems like we go really slow in this project, and we do, but we will pick up the pace dramatically over the next few sessions. And so I erase that off. Now I'm going to go back to using my compass again. And in this case, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to use the biggest pattern this time. This is the second biggest pattern over here. So I'm going to use the biggest pattern. I'm going to center it up. I'm going to make sure it's in the middle. And then I'm going to hold it down firmly and carefully. I'm going to trace that little circle pattern. And when I look at it, that says to me that's pretty much in the center too. So what we have here is the rubber portion, the rim, and the hub in the middle. Just like here, we got the rubber portion, the rim, which is this portion, and the hub in the middle. So rubber portion, rim, hub in the middle. Alright, I think what we could accurately do is maybe just erase these little dots now. I don't think we'll need those anymore. Okay, let me dust a bit, and we're ready to move on to the next thing, because we're making tremendous progress right now. Okay, now, what I'm noticing is that our tires look pretty good. The red lines on my markings are looking pretty good, so we're starting to get a project developing here. So our next objective is to start analyzing what we see in this row. Well, that's pretty easy, because in this row there's nothing in square A1, there's nothing in square B1, C1, or D1. So everybody has already got these 4 squares absolutely done properly. It's when we get to square E1 that we start having problems. So I'm going to line this up so we can properly analyze it. So we're going to work in this square. I'm going to use a red pen on this, but I'm going to use my pencil on the drawing. So I'm going to split this square. I'm going to split it again. And then I go to here. I split this square, E1. I split it again lightly so that I can erase later if I must. Okay. Now I ask myself, there's nothing here, and there's nothing here, and there's nothing here. So nope, nope, nope. But there is something here. And it's tucked down in here. So sometimes I have to even split again in order to see it accurately. So I'm going to split again. Okay. Everything that's on this little picture is going to be twice the size on our drawing. Now, look, this entire tip of the windshield right there is contained in this lower left quadrant of square E1. So, my advice is we trace over it a few times. So you trace over it, 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 and it almost hits it. And then we want to, it's just slightly tilted, we're going to draw it before our hand forgets how to do it. which is like the end of a broomstick or a shovel. Okay, very nice. Now, let's see if we can measure it and see what happens. So I say that it looks to me like the tip of that windshield, the very top of it, is 1/2 of a centimeter in length from top to bottom on the little picture. That means it should be about 1 centimeter over here. So we come over here, and sure as shooting, it's pretty much 1 centimeter tall. So the system is actually working quite well for us right now. So it's really simple once you know how it works. So I'm a person that just likes to erase the work I do as I go along, because it keeps a lot of the smearing from happening in our art projects. And graphite, or pencil lead as most people call it, is very smudgy. Alright, so see, we've already got the tires in, like here. We've got the top of the first windshield in. So now I'm right-handed, so I prefer to work from the left side toward the right side. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to start in square A2. And in square A2, I'm going to place it over here next to what I'm trying to draw. I want to split that square. I'm going to split the square here again. And I'm going to do that exact same thing right here on the drawing. So I split the square, split the square. Okay, so now you may not be able to see my split lines. I will pronounce them a little bit more. But they are in there, and you should be able to see the faintest markings of them. You should draw these very light. Now we look at square A2, and what we notice is there's nothing here, here, or here. Look, nothing here, here, or here. All that's in there are these two portions right here, and that's even below about halfway. So I'm going to just try to see what I see there. It looks to me, if I were to trace over this with a pen, it looks to me like this shape right here that I'm tracing over right now is just a letter F, like a capital letter F, but, you know, kind of bigger. So I'm going to try to draw that, and it comes about like right here, tilted just about like this, just about like that. We're just looking right at it out of one eye and looking at our drawing out of the other. And then it turns and comes back downhill about like this. Okay, so that's the upper part, and then this lower portion of the letter F is just above the grid line. So about right in here. Now there is just a little bump out on this bottom portion, so I'm going to kind of tighten that up. And I'm going to draw this line a little bolder. Same thing here. I'm going to draw that line a little bolder, tilting downhill slightly. And see, it's about halfway, So that's all there really is to this, and now we may have to change a little bit as we go along. You always got to just fix it as you go. That's part of making artwork. I've seen very few people get anything perfectly right on the very first try. However, it happens, I'm sure. It just never happens around me. That's all I can say. Okay, now we're going to go on down. It's hard to see, but there is a line that passes also. It's hidden by the line that separates A2 from A3. So what we'll go ahead and do is just move on to square B2. Now I'm looking at square B2, and I'm going to have to split it, because that's how this project is done. You split the square, you split the square. And if you do it here, you probably got to do it on the drawing, right? I'm going to go back. I think I can let this one go now. I can remove my analysis work, because I don't want it to confuse me. And if you get too many stray markings on your drawing, it will get confusing, and you will struggle to figure out where the next mark goes. Okay. So what I have noticed is that in square B2, we've got the back of the seat of the car, and we've got more of a continuation of this trunk, basically. So, but nothing up here. So let's. I'm going to go ahead and split square B2 right down the middle, and side, just like the letter L in our flag language that everybody, I'm sure, is so happy to know about. Alright, so let's see how this goes. This line right here just continues from here and goes almost all the way to the line. It would stop right there, I suppose. So I'm going to use the dotted line technique on this, and I'm just going to make dots until it gets to about, oh, I guess about right there looks about good. So I'm just going to keep dotting that line, and this is much easier to correct if you mess up. So keep dotting that line, and when you get a dotted line that looks about the same as this line right here, you go ahead and bold it. And if you don't, erase it and fix it. Okay, now this next line actually touches the grid line and goes just barely under it to about right here. So I'm going to look at this, I'm going to come down just barely under that line and place a dot right there that I can aim at. A little registration dot that allows me to aim this line at that dot. So I'm going to dot some more, dot on. Okay, I'm going to keep on dotting, aiming for the registration dot over there that I made just below the grid line. And once I get a good dotted line that looks pretty much like what I want, and I may have to do that a little more because I'm not so sure. There we go. Okay, so then I'm going to just fold it up. Now just a minute ago I was talking about another line. There's a very, very dark black line that touches the line that separates A2 from A3, and then it comes in just above the tire and stops at the back of the seat. So that would be about right here, and we're just going to dot along, and remember it's got to be above the tire. So let's see, it looks like it's resting right on that grid line though. So we're going to dot along, and it shouldn't touch the tire. It should be just above the tire, and then it stops over here just by this one, I believe. Yep. So I'm going to dot, 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 dot. I'm going to keep on dotting, and I'm not going to let it touch the tire. There's a tiny micro space right in between the two. And once I've got a good dot line working, I'm going to fold that up. Okay, so see, now we've got this line, this line, this line, and this line. Now in the back right here we see there's some other things in square A3, and while we're at this we might as well take care of those. This is 3 reverse lazy C's. If you remember what we did in our drawing exercises. So we're going to 3 reverse lazy C's. So I'm going to go reverse lazy C, and see how it just disappears into the top of the tire. It's obscured. Then we're going to come over a little bit, about this far. It's still inside square A3. And we're going to draw another line that matches it. It's curved. And then I notice there's just the tiniest space between it and the next line. Okay, so that's what we should kind of be getting here. So that brings us to this portion right here. But I need to, I believe, go back, and I'm going to bold up the lines for my tires, because I really believe you need to be able to see those very clearly, and I don't think I'm going to be erasing anything off of them. So that's bold, and I'll take this one here and I'll bold it up too. Alright. So I always start drawing lightly, but then as I get things that I know are correct and won't need to be changed, then I go back and I try to darken it up so you can clearly see it. That is much better already. Alright, so let's go back and bold our lines here. Same thing here, it's looking pretty good. And see, we're making really good progress. And you have to believe that you're going to be able to succeed at this. If you don't, you're going to struggle with it tremendously. Now, I think the last thing we've got to work on in this portion of the car right here would be this marking right here, the back of the seat, and these several small markings right here in this corner. So, it looks to me, if I started just below the little mini split line here that I've got in square B2, it would be just below this line, and I'm going to put a dot right there to help me remember where I'm going to start at. And then I'm simply just going to draw a nice
a slightly bowed, just slightly bowed line. Some people see it straight, but I don't see it that way. And if you were to put a ruler on it, I'll bet you wouldn't see it that way either. So I'm going to do my dotted line method, and it just kind of dotted line. It's just slightly bowed. It almost appears to be straight to some. But I know it's curved. Okay, once I get my nice dotted line that is working for me, I go and simply bold it up again. Now, let's see what's happening here. This green stripe has one line, two lines, and then a third line up here that goes out of the picture. So, and it's got a little, like a little curve to it, so I might have to take just a bit of that off. But what I'm going to do is draw a curve, and it will curve downwards and like this. So this right here, I'm going to put that curve in right there. And then this one goes straight off the picture right here. Or not off the picture, straight out of the square to here. And then this next one is the top of the green stripe. And it goes right here. It's going to touch right here, and it just goes like this. Something like this. And then this is the bottom of the green stripe, so it's where the curve is at. It's the bottom of the green stripe, and it comes down like this. So it should look something like this. And if we compare the two pictures to each other and ask ourselves, does this and this resemble each other? We can move it over even closer. Does this and this resemble each other? And I'm going to say that's pretty close, so I would leave it alone. So we'll simply go back, clean this up. Now, if we're in a physical classroom, I'd be walking around explaining to you that, you know, what you were doing was the right thing or the wrong thing, and helping you correct your artwork as we went. In this case, that's really not hard. That's very difficult to do. Some of you will send me photos of your artwork, and I have done my best to respond to those and explain to you what's going on with your projects in the design unit and what's going on with your projects here in our drawing unit. Alright, so we've made tremendous progress here today. I think we're going to try to just I don't know what we're going to do here. What we're going to do is we're going to move on maybe to square C2 for today. And that's probably about all we'll be able to get done today. Let's split our square C2 on the little picture. Square C2, split it. Same thing here. And then we do the same thing again. So anything we do on here, we should do over on the big drawing as well. Now the way I see this, there's nothing here or here in square C2, the upper half, so nothing here, nothing here. So I see this lazy S that comes down into this portion and then leaves and touches down here. So where is that happening at? And that would be in square D3. So in square D3, square D3, it just touches just barely about right here in square D3. Okay, so I'm going to put a little dot right there because that's going to give me something to aim at. No, it isn't. Square D3. No. Shut my mouth. This is in square C3. Okay, C3 is about right here, isn't it? Okay. There we go. So see, you got to check yourself. That's what this is all about, is making sure that what you think you see and what you really see are the same things. Now in this case, we're going to start with this line right here is going to curve down and touch right here. And so we're going to use that dotted line approach again. So we're going to curve it down. It's going to come over and just right like this. That's a lazy S. So we just dot it along until we get to the right shape. And it's a big lazy S. Okay, now I'm going to just kind of fold it up because I feel confident about this, what I just made, and there we go. Now we're going to do the same thing again. As you'll notice right here, the top of the stripe eventually touches in the exact same place where I just made this mark. So I want to just make sure it crosses over that little corner, square C2. Okay, and then it comes in like this. Touches right there. See, right here. So I'm going to dot until I get just the shape I'm looking for. And this is a more pronounced lazy S. Okay, well that bell says we're about done here for now, so we'll finish up this particular part, and then that will be an excellent day's session. If you're keeping up with me, you're doing a good job. If you're not keeping up with me, you need to kind of go back and replay parts of the video and do your best to catch up. I'm going to do the lower line and the green stripe right now. So here's where it's at, and it goes along like this. Now in this case, it will end up just below this line over here. So observe, I'm going to curve along another lazy S, and our lazy S will leave that square right there. Okay, so I like this dotting method. It really works for me. And if I mess up, it's easy to erase. And once I get the right marking or the right curve that I like, it's much easier to bold it. There's one more thing we're going to do before it's the day today, and that would be right here at the bottom of C2. There's a little indication of the seat cushion. It's a little reverse lazy C. It's right on that split line. See, it goes right down here, and it's right there. So if we follow this right here, we're going to reverse lazy C. Draw it in nice and firm, and then we're going to erase this material out of here. And we have made huge progress in just one class session today. So, and I'm trying to go patiently and slow. I'm not trying to go fast. So you may have to work a little more off camera perhaps. Let's see what we have. So far that looks pretty good. If we compare it to this, I think you'll agree it's pretty good. If we compare those two things together, they're pretty close. If you ask this old guy. Alright, well that's enough for today. We'll get back together again shortly, and we'll continue on with our drawing of the 1929 Ford T-Bucket Roadster. Thanks, have a good day.